on your election to national president of the BMWE. Having been frustrated with that organization from years ago and joining the Teamsters earlier, and just having spoken to you the other day, man, I was just so happy to have that conversation, because I haven't had that conversation with a trade unionist in a long time. So I was telling people, man, I said we spoke for like half an hour, and it was like, yo, this brother is on point. But I was giving them the joke about you hunting elk out your backyard. Give us a little introduction about who Tony Cardwell is from childhood to now. I think that's important for people to understand the complexity of the trade unionists.
Sure, absolutely. First, thank you for having me on and inviting me. It's always good to broaden our horizons in the BMWED and hopefully reconcile some of the old mistakes that have been made and rekindle friendships and brotherhood with amongst other other unions and other groups and where some bridges have been burned over the years. And I know that that's my number one goal, because it requires all of us to beat the carriers, and the carriers I deal with are some of the worst. I know everyone believes that, and of course our members do. I think the rail unions are some of the worst to deal with, and some of the worst. They got this very vulture capitalistic mentality, and it's difficult to fight them and come out victorious. So with that being said, I'll talk a little bit about myself. It's not my favorite thing to do, because I'm kind of principled in the sense that it's always about the membership. But as their leader, I'll just kind of introduce myself. Our voted in leader. I come from Oregon. I come from a small town in the middle of nowhere, Oregon. Nobody would know it unless you're one of the probably 65 people that live there. It was a small town called Christmas Valley, Oregon. And I literally grew up about 150 miles away from Bend, Oregon, which is the closest city from that location. And so I grew up very rustic. My dad was a pastor for the local small church. And I wouldn't say that my family was necessarily anti-union, but they definitely weren't pro-union. They didn't understand unionism. They didn't understand it. I grew up in kind of a very, so I'm first generation. I'll say it that way. I'm first generation unionist in my family, but it's I've pulled my father and my mother around, and they're starting to understand it and learn and understand what we provide and what we do. And one thing I'm proud of as a Christian man, I'm always proud that our principles of Christianity and unionism, I think, flow together. I think some of the greatest leaders in the union movement were strong, principled Christians, and I'm proud to be that type of person. I don't say I have the best values, but I have strong values on certain issues. I love representing the membership and fighting for the people that are disenfranchised from their employers and constantly being mistreated. It's a pleasure and an honor to do this work. I always laugh because I actually get paid a pretty good wage to do it too, and I would do it for free. It's that enjoyable sometimes.
That'd be true.
So it's just what I love to do. The railroads are some of the nastiest employers and still are. And they treat their employees, it seems like we haven't got out of the 30s and the 20s and 30s. Mm-hmm. It's still just extremely brutal work. It's hard work, physical labor out in the cold, and you still have the elitist bosses. I tend to call them our corporate masters that continue to treat us poorly and make us work in unbearable conditions on many, many occasions, and they don't do anything to improve that situation. Safety is still ridiculously horrible. They just learned how to manipulate the numbers better for themselves to show less safety incidences when they're actually just as many, if not more. Recently, I've had three members die probably the last 3 or 4 months on the job, and probably prior to that, we've had several lose legs and whatnot just the last probably 6 months, let's say, lose legs, lose arms, hands. The job's dangerous, and because the way that carriers are operating right now under the railroad, they've reduced the employment to such a low level that you have people doing multiple jobs, whether they're qualified or not, they're doing multiple jobs. And so we're battling the carrier with what they call precision scheduled railroading. And they're extremely nasty about it. And it's forced our employees to work hundreds of hours. I mean, just, 100 hours a week isn't entirely uncommon. Right. But I would say the average week is probably 60 to 80 hours a week for our members. And this is in the elements and the cold, the heat, and everything else. As you guys know, as you guys represent a lot of railroaders, it's dangerous work, and it's caused a problem to where sick leave turned into an issue. It's not just the problems with the COVID. It was additional problems. It brought on by PSR's precision scheduled railroading, right. Shorthanded. It's forced our guys to work, and ladies. We represent a small portion of ladies. I think we're trying to change this drastically, but I think our membership is made up about 3% female or less. So we're trying to make improvements there. I think it's important to bring females into the workplace. In the railroad.
You got them on your board. You got Stacy on your board.
Yeah, she's the first female to serve as we've made some things we should have done years ago. We had the first female and the first African-American to serve in the national division. And I'm proud to be part of a slate that accomplished that. It was important for me to make sure that we brought diversity into the mix so that we can then, force the carriers to employ the way they should as well. Right. We're calling on the carriers to do it on occasion, but we ourselves were
remiss.
Yeah. You're just not following our own demands. Right. So it was good when I took over to bring in a much more diverse group. We're going to continue to work on that as well. But yeah, we're excited about what the BMWED is doing. We took on this fight on sick leave turned into a national issue. It hit all kinds of news channels from far left to far right. And we really try to get our message out there to notify the American people, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, all Americans deserve sick leave in a full-time paid position. And that's just my opinion, not just my opinion, it's backed up by good, solid science, which shows that a healthy workforce is a better workforce. And so we made this push. I wouldn't say that we're responsible for Canada's sick leave by any stretch. I know they've been working on it for years, but it was awesome to see that, about a week after our agreement was dealt with, the Canadians came out with 10 days of sick leave for all employees in Canada. And it's nice to see that state by state, that they're starting to take on the issue. Illinois just passed 5 sick leave days for all workers there. And we're going to continue to push the fight state by state, as I'm sure all of you guys are doing as well. So that's something I'd ask everyone to get involved in, is this push for all workers in the state. Unfortunately, as railroaders, as what they call federal employers, they don't follow, and you guys know how exemption comes with some of the collective bargaining agreements. And so they don't always get it just because they live in that state. But we feel that the issue is so important that the more we push it, even if it doesn't get our members there, it'll help get our members there at some time or another. So right. We can work with the states and push this issue. I think it's it's one major issue that I was just saddened that we couldn't get there under the Biden administration. It's frustrating because we're still working with them. We're hopeful.
Well, I wanted to, so let me just hold you for a second because I wanted to do a little bit of, let me introduce you to our brother Richard Hooker, who is the president of Local 623 in Philadelphia. And we have been a part of just keeping this struggle alive. We're not going to let it drop. We're not going to let it die. We're going to keep fighting. So Richard, I want you to meet brother Anthony Cardwell, Tony Cardwell, who is the national president of the BMWE, who led his members on a glorious battle only to be defeated in the halls of Congress.
Nice to meet you, good brother.
You as well, brother Hooker. How you doing? And you live in Philly or?
Yes, sir. I live in Philly.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure and honor to meet you, brother.
Same here.
Yes.
Like Chris was saying earlier, we've been really trying to keep this message going, because the way I feel, and I know he feels the same way, and I know you feel the same way, In the COVID era, there is no reason why any worker, union or non-union, should not have sick time, but especially with what the rail guys and gals do. I mean, it's inhumane for us to be talking about why doesn't that sector of worker have sick time? It makes no sense to me.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It was frustrating because we were doing, I don't like doing news, nor do I want to do, it's not my style. But we were getting a lot of calls and a lot of demands from all the major news channels, which I'm not preferential to at all. I don't like any of the news channels for that matter. The cable news channels, they tend to it's just rhetoric, but nevertheless, it was an honor to represent the membership, to speak about their fight. And what was crazy is whether it was right or left, they all said, wait, there's got to be more to it than that. And it's like, no, we don't get sick leave. If you get sick on the railroad and you don't show up to work, you get disciplined. And if you don't get disciplined, you're forced to use your vacation. If you don't have vacation, then you get an excused absence and all. And they're like, that can't be. And it was funny because, if you've ever been on a news channel, they have sidebar conversation with you before you get on or after. Right. And they were just like, that can't be the case. And it's like, no, that's exactly what's going on. I'm not fabricating this in any way, shape, or form. I'm telling you exact truth. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not. And it was crazy because even the conservative news channels provide this for their membership. You know what I mean? Even the right-wing news channels provided this for their membership. And it was crazy talking to some of these folks and listening to their stories and hearing how they get not just 15 days, things like that, but it rolls over and carries into their retirement and all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. Our members don't get squat. And that's just a fact. I mean, and more so than that, another fight we're taking on. You guys will probably see my article if I'll share it with you, Brother Silvera and Brother Hooker. But we don't get Martin Luther King Day or Juneteenth either, nor Veterans Day. So there's 3 holidays we don't get that we were asking for in this round as well, which we don't observe on the railroad. And I can definitely speculate why that's that way, but we asked for them, and it's a need to get those as well, to honor those holidays, and the railroads have refused to give us those days as well. Now, Veterans Day, there's some bargaining issues that went on, so I'll say that one's somewhat understandable. It should be there regardless, but the other 2, there was never a quid pro quo or any reason why they just won't give it to us. Right. So they won't honor those days. And so, those are other days that would build quality of life. And I think all of these, we can't lose focus, as Brother Hooker, Brother Silver, you guys understand this. This is just, it builds quality of life when you have the appropriate amount of days off, and you can have these holidays off to honor the people that went before us and whatnot. And the quality of life issues are just not in the forefront for the railroads. And so it's important to bring that, it's important to bring them up and lift them up, with the rest of most of, organized labor, if not all of it.
Yeah, so definitely all of us got to be involved in this, because it's you guys today. It's going to be me tomorrow. Yeah. It's coming down the pipe. There's no if and buts about it. Your struggle is my struggle is your struggle. And I think that's the only way that we can attack these issues, is all of us together. Mm-hmm. I come from UPS. You 2 gentlemen come from the railroad. But we both, all 3 of us, are fighting the same enemy. All 3 of us are. Every worker is. And we have to keep that in mind.
But it's important to note, and Brother Carwell kind of hinted at it, the railroads still are 10 seconds from slavery in their mindset, in the way they continue to treat workers, in their, in just the whole brutality of the system, to not recognize that people have children, that people have spouses, that people themselves get sick and have responsibility. And these are multi-billion-dollar, the single most profitable industry in America in
Absolutely.
terms of return on investment is the railroad. They get 50 cents on every dollar put in. They get 50 cents out. No, not the cars, not airlines, nothing, not UPS, nobody
close, yeah.
Money that the railroads make. And we have to surround them, and we got to get like Jesse James on there behind and start taking stuff from them, because this is ridiculous what is taking place to what are hardworking, decent human beings. And, you know, Brother Carver pointed out, when you went on those programs, it didn't matter whether it was a quote unquote left wing, right wing. Every American, I think if you took a poll right now, 99% of Americans believe that every worker should have sick days, regardless of what they were doing. I think without question.
Absolutely. I think you guys are spot on. I think your Brother Savell, you said it. I can't say it any better myself. You said it exactly on point. It's extremely frustrating. You know, this is why we're talking about some of these workplace issues. I also have the pleasure of representing a large Native American employment that the railroads have, particularly Union Pacific and BN are two of the largest, and they both employ a large portion of their membership. Our membership, their employees are Native Americans. And in fact, we represent thousands of Navajo Americans, and the Navajo Nation, which resides mostly in Arizona and New Mexico area. They are sovereign nation, and those employees are some of the hardest working employees that we have as well. And it is absolutely, when you said we're one step away from slavery, it's absolutely, if we don't think that the discrimination is alive and well towards, all people of ethnicity, but particularly these people, folks that work for us, it is astonishing the way they're treated. And so where I made my name coming through the industry was recognizing these folks and really trying to develop their own lodge, because the union had what I would call some lingering racial, agendas there, where it took us until the 80s to recognize them as members in our union, which was just absurd. And so they didn't have their own established lodges, and so we worked to establish those lodges for them so that they could be representative of their beliefs and recognize and understand all their culture and whatnot. And we worked hard to establish that for them now, and we're working hard to educate them of their rights as union members, so that they have the opportunity to better represent not just themselves but each other. And that's made quite a bit of difference on those railroads, because the way they treat these people is absurd. I mean, I could give you hours of stories, and I won't go into that, but it's astonishing how different they treated what we call the Navajo gangs, because our work groups are called gangs. The way they treated them over the, predominantly white or African-American or Hispanic gangs, they treated them completely different, and totally didn't pay them right, didn't compensate them right, didn't treat them right. And it's baffling. So that's still work that's on our agenda as well, because this is a major problem that we have in the industry. The history of it is, from my understanding, is that they hired a lot of the Navajos because they were able to get major tax deductions. And so when they started hiring them all, they would work them on separate gangs and work them obviously completely different standards than they had for the rest of rail labor. And so anyways, it's still lingering and still there. Just thought I would tell that story, felt it necessary to bring that up. And so you hear how they are and what the railroads are like. It helps you bring some perspective.
Yeah, because people don't know that up until 1923 or 1924, Native Americans weren't citizens of the United States.
Yeah.
Born and raised in this land, with 1,000 years of history in this land, and they were not recognized by the superstructure as being citizens until the 20s. You know what I'm saying? But I want you to delve into your experience and for you being a virgin in terms of this is, I mean, you just got elected and, you know, you're right in the middle of this warfare that's taking place to, you know, describe what it was like, you know, through the Presidential Emergency Board and then now attaining the right to strike and having to deal with the political apparatus that wants to hold you down.
I'll be slightly careful. I don't know who's all in the call.
No doubt. We understand.
Yeah, oh yeah, we definitely understand that.
Yeah, so let me think of the best way to explain this. So probably more so in the rail industry, the government is involved in our collective bargaining more so than virtually any other industry. And that goes for airline and rail. We both bargain under what they call the RLA, which is the Railroad Labor Act. And I'll make this short because I don't want to bore everyone with all the details, but ultimately, if there's an inability to come to an agreement, then it requires the parties to go through mediation, which is the case in a lot of other unionized industries. But if there's no resolution in mediation, then ultimately we resolve it under a Presidential Emergency Board. It's called a PEB. And the PEB is formed with three arbitrators, if you will. They can select them from virtually anything. And they choose these three people, and these three people then sit in front of the parties who argue their case in front of them, and they make a recommendation out of those arguments. And this is just a short form of it. So I'm sure some people that understand it, their head's spinning right now. They're going, someone much more detail than that, but that's a quick version. And so ultimately they made a decision. The decision was unsatisfactory, mainly because it didn't include sick leave. Biden, I'll say this, Biden did take the people, I believe, that the union had recommended or believed that should be on the boards. I think he took our opinions into consideration. I think he appointed the people that we believe should be there, but it just wasn't a favorable outcome. It did give a decent wage increase, but it didn't, inflation was high, as you guys know. So the wages needed to be a little bit higher potentially. It did eat into our benefits a little bit. It wasn't a major blow to benefits, but it increased our cost a little bit. And ultimately it didn't include sick leave, which we've been fighting over for years. Yeah. And so it failed ratification. And one thing that the government continued to do and the news agencies is they continue to say, well, 9 out of the 12 unions had ratified. Well, the 3 that didn't ratify made up over 50% of the membership. My federation, or my union, is the BMWED is one of the bigger ones, and then the UTU didn't ratify either, and then the BLE. So we made up over 50% of the membership who hadn't ratified it, and the other ones barely passed ratification. Yeah. So government starts getting involved because at that time you have a cooling off period, and if we agreed to a cooling off period and it's coming to an end, that means we could strike. When we strike, we have strike recognition with all the other railroads, all the other crafts strike. So if the guys that do the track work strike, then the guys on the trains have to strike as well, and on and so forth. And so you shut down one strike, shuts down the entire railroad. And so ultimately, we were getting close to that strike. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion, and I'll just say it this way. This is where you find out who's a union man and who's not.
Say it again. The people in the back.
This is where you separate the Bernie Sanders from the Joe Bidens of the world. Mm-hmm. And so we got into the situation to where we had to come to an agreement, which the carriers wouldn't budge because they knew the government was the backstop. They knew that the government wouldn't let us out, and that's unfortunate because we were hopeful that they would. I know that sounds foolhardy, but the thought was, well, look, they'll let us go. Maybe because I'm the new guy, I believe that. All the old heads were like, no way, and I'm like, right. Now this is Union Joe, right? So we'll see. And I was hopeful. With Marty Walsh being the Secretary of Labor and all the as good as the stars have ever been aligned in recent years, We were hopeful, I guess, at least I was. Well, we were getting told that wasn't going to happen. I'll just put it that way. We were told that the strike's not an option. Yeah. That was unfortunate. It really was, because what you're doing, and I don't think anyone outside of the industry gets this, what you're doing when you take a man's strike away or a woman's strike away from them is you're taking their ultimate leverage, ultimate power, as you guys know. Mm-hmm. In all other industries, it's the government can't really, they can, but for the most part they can't.
Right.
Yeah. In this industry, they hamstrung us. They took our power away from us, and so the railroads were not bargaining in good faith during cooling off periods. Mm-hmm. Why would they? So right. It allows them to jerk around, allows them to screw around and not give us what we need and what members are fighting for. And it doesn't allow us, and our members, for the first time ever I've seen in my 24-year history, were prepared and wanted it. Mm-hmm. I've never seen that. I've seen where a lot of members don't. I would say 80-90% of our members seem ready to walk. They were ready to go. They're so disenfranchised by their employer. And it isn't just the contract, it's the way they're treated.
Yes.
And I try to convey that in my conversations with the White House. My constant message that I was trying to put it is that it's not about the contract. They hate their employer. It's the working conditions. It's the way the railroad treats them. You have to understand, because it's like, well, they got 24% wages. I said, I don't care if they're 40% wages. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Just because you pay somebody good doesn't mean abusing them is okay. Right. And I don't think I don't think anyone understood that. I don't think anyone understands how poorly railroaders are treated these days. And so ultimately, we got pushed into a corner, and so our team had a hard time. So we got our heads together in our bargaining committee and said, let's make it a sick leave fight. If we fight all these 5 other issues, it's never going to catch wind.
Right.
Sick leave's the big priority here.
Yes.
Let's turn it into a sick leave fight and stick to sick leave, because Americans can understand that. Mm-hmm. And this would be anything I learned as a brand new guy. This is something I'll learn moving forward. And you the union leaders on this call, take it for what it's worth. If you get into multiplicity type fights or multi-angled fights, it's much more complicated, because you have to protect your flank over here and this over there and all this, right? If you can singular your fight, just use it as the tip of the spear, if you will. I learned real quick that was the right move. I think it was just maybe through my prayer, my commitment, and some gut feelings that we decided to make it that way, and it was the best decision we made, because it caught wind that we needed. And so, when you're taking on these fights with the employer and you're coming to these final minutes, if you're asking for 10 different things, then the American people have a hard time getting behind it. But when you singular that fight, you get it on one issue. It seemed to me the American people picked up on it, and they still are, because I'm still getting calls and stuff about it. The fight's still on, by the way. As you guys know, you're fighting for it as well with us. So, any piece of advice I can give you out of my brand new tenure, I would tell you, look, as labor leaders, let's get singular with some of these fights that the American people pick up on, and let it lead the cause, right? Because when I've seen it before, where some of these unions try to get the Americans to understand about wages or something, and the American people just, it's hard for them to understand it. Benefits, other things like that. What they can get behind is these quality of life issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good way to lead your fight forward, in my opinion. And then the rest of the things can follow. They'll come with you.
Let me ask you a question. Did you, as a witness to this struggle, did you believe that the powers that be were leaning on the railroads as heavily as they were leaning on the unions?
I'll say this, absolutely not. That's what was so frustrating. In fact, I'll affirm that, and I probably get chastised for it, but nevertheless,
that's all right. Hey, listen,
I could care less.
There you go. Listen, I'm probably gonna get a text message or later on. Chris gonna get something. So we've been there and done that plenty of times.
Yeah. No way. And I brought it up in conversations with the powers to be. the highest level of government officials and told them, I want the railroads to push them to the table, get them there, work on them. Why is it that why is it us that have to concede? In fact, the concessions were constantly called out of us, even when we were sitting at the table. And that's frustrating because it's like, they are the ones that got everything. We're the ones that are fighting for just what we deserve. And you're pushing us to concede. It's insanity.
Yeah.
And if anyone thinks that, I'll say this with the exceptions, 100%, and I've never been a huge Bernie Sanders fan. I'm one of his biggest fans now, I'll tell you that. And it's because the experience I had with him during this process, he was 100% behind us. And at first I thought it was lip service or just a news story for him. And then, as we worked through this and we worked with his people, they, even to this day, they call and ask how things are going and what they can do to help and stuff. So, whether you like him or not, him and I part ways on some issues for sure, but he's a man of principle. I'll say that, at least in my opinion, my dealing with him. Now, sure, people have different opinions on this call, but that was the experience I had with him. He was really, really good to work with. And really helped our cause in this situation. It's sad that we got to lean on government officials to try to stop our strikes for us. But when we did, he was the guy that answered the call for us, and he's the guy that helped push some of the issues for us. And having our issues debated on the floor of the House and in the Senate was awesome, because even though some of the people didn't believe what they were saying, because we all know who the corporate whores are.
Right.
Even though they didn't believe what they were saying, some of them, it was still good to hear our story told and at the highest level of government. But I really wish that they didn't have the ability to even make that decision. That's what's frustrating.
Right.
They shouldn't be deciding that. Nobody should be able to take a man's strike away from them. It just
at all. That's right.
Ever.
Supply chain or otherwise, that's the only weapon that the worker has. And if you can take that away from me, then you are making me powerless in an environment where capitalism is running rampant. I mean,
yeah.
You said it earlier on. This is not greed now. They're vultures. They're beyond just regular corporate normal greed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, this had to be, I mean, you're coming up the ladder. You from the track department or B&B?
Yeah, so I work both actually on my railroad. I come off the old Southern Pacific Territory, and it allowed us to work both. So I carry seniority in both. Yeah, okay. I mean, I work both.
So you've been right. Because usually the guys in the track department signal, like with PTC now. I mean, I just went to an event with the FRA in which they're talking about with the implementation of PTC. Some of these railroads are now going to take away wayside signals, and the train in front becomes the signal, which means that a lot of signal maintainers are going to lose their jobs.
Yep.
Right? And there's nothing that I've heard that says that there's a safety net to catch those skilled workers.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And provide them and for them and their families. Have you seen the impact of what's going on? Have you seen that already?
We are. We're starting to see definitely the fight on the two-man crew issue and some of the signal because the PTC is coming to finalization of completion, if you will. I know there's a lot we're still seeing that, and I'll say this, in my opinion, this is just, once again, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions, but this is my opinion. If rail labor, in this, me saying this as a president of the BMWED, if rail labor cannot figure out that an impact on the BRS and the BLE, which represent the trainmen in the UTU, SMART, those folks that represent the trainmen and represent the signalmen that work out there. If we, I hate the apathy I see amongst some union people of like, well, they're going to go and eventually it's just going to take over. And you just, I can't, it literally makes my skin crawl when these people start talking that way. Their fight is our fight.
Yep.
And if we lose those members, if there's no longer a person on a train, then even if we could strike, how is that? It's going to have very little impact. So it's like we've got to understand in all the crafts that harm to any of our brothers in these other crafts, in the passenger rail, if it's in freight, if it's in what, it doesn't matter. Even some of the state ran railroads and stuff, when they have a bad impact on their personnel, it impacts all of us.
Yeah,
because it moves across the country like a storm. And as soon as one railroad does it, even on a small little short line railroad, it goes across the country like a storm. And ultimately, if we don't join the fight with our signalman brothers and our trainman brothers and sisters, we're going to all suffer, and it's gonna impact all of us. And so, as Maintenance Away president, I'm committed to taking up those fights with the BLE in the SMART TD, and the small railroads and small short lines and whatnot. Legally, whether it's picketing, as you guys did when you supported us and helped us with the sick leave issues, whatever it is, we need to join that fight. And if we can't do it, if we can't do it, then we're in trouble. And some of our forefathers talked about this, as you guys know. If rail labor can't work unified, and if it can't get more collective, then we're in trouble. And more now than ever, because the tech is here. We're facing it, and it's going to damage our membership, and it's going to damage good American jobs if we don't get serious about it. So I'm going to stand on the line with these brothers, support them any way we can, and we're going to fight these issues together. Hopefully we can win as well, and memorialize two-man crew and memorialize head counts for the BLE and on and so forth. So
that's right. I mean, you're talking about a train that's 2 miles long, in which you're hauling carcinogenic material, explosive material, flammable material on top of, and you only have 2 people, and you're trying to shrink this down to just 1 person, right? What happens if that person got a heart attack? Who would know? Who would be able to hit a button and say, so these things are happening outside of the public domain, and we need to make the public understand that coming through your town, is a train that could blow you to that kingdom come. You might see the maker quicker than you want to see the maker if these things go through. Let me just ask a question. Because I know this contract actually is retroactive, so it probably is going to expire in about another year.
Yeah, it expires at the end of 2014. So we got
2024.
24, 2024. So a little less than 2 years from now, we'll be serving notice.
Okay.
We got to build up and prepare and work together and start our bargaining now. So whether anyone's an O'Brien fan or not, one thing he's done, in my opinion, with the UPS workers is some of the stuff that they've planned on and organized and started the campaign early. That's something that I think we in rail labor are going to have to pick up on and run with, that type of an agenda or plan. That's our goal, is to start now, and to start this fight. It never ended. That's what's crazy. It's like the contract's over is what I keep hearing. I'm like, no, it hasn't. We haven't got sick leave yet.
Right.
We're not done yet. And so I think the philosophy has to be, it's never really ended. And one thing in rail labor that I hope everyone kind of works with us and helps us on this is that they steal money and wages from our members by not paying them and going out of contract. The contract doesn't expire in rail labor. And so in my particular group, And so what you have is, with these guys were 3 years out of contract without a wage increase before now they go retro, but ultimately that has pretty big impact, especially with inflation on a family, as you guys can imagine. So this round, our intent is to expose this and really show that the railroad's not only stealing that money from our members by not paying them their due wages. We don't have COLAs and things like that, so they don't get increases. And so the problem is that ultimately by stealing their wages like this, they invest this money and make millions off of it. So the millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in wages that they steal, they make literally hundreds of millions of dollars off of. So they're actually incentivized to stay out of contract.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, it's hard to understand, but that's exactly what's going on. So we're going to expose, and we're going to do it right off the get-go. If they go a day out of contract, we're going to keep track of the amount of money that they're stealing from our members, and we're going to use it as like a ticker and just show the railroads that you're stealing this money from us. And I hope people
millions daily.
Millions daily. Millions that they steal from.
Go across the system. It's millions daily.
Yep.
You know. So I want you to know this, man, because I'm a trackman. I've never been in B&B, so
sure.
I'm a trackman through and through. And I want you to, if you're coming on this East Coast at a time, or even if you're not, you have an invitation to come to Local 808. I want you to come and educate our members ahead of time. So when this fight starts again in 2024, our contract is going to expire in January of 2024 as well. So, but I want you to come earlier because I want them to understand the globalization, the national of what this struggle looks like for all of us. Because, as you say, all these railroads share information.
Yep.
If they stuck it to a guy over there, they make a phone call, we stuck it to him and we won that one. And we need to have our members understand an injury to one is an injury to all. So whenever you come in on this side of the world, please let me know. I want you to be able to come up and have that conversation, because you're having it in a real world sense of you're dealing with absolute capitalism. I mean, the godfather of the capitalist empire, Mr. Warren Buffett, owns Burlington Northern.
Yeah, and that invitation is extended to you as well. Always, I'd love to work with you guys and really learn from a guy that's been around this industry as long as you have. I could sit with you for hours, days, and learn a lot from you. I know you know that history. I love the history. That's one thing that any strong union leader, in my opinion, you should really never stop trying to learn the history of the industry you're in and where it came from and all that. So I'm an absolute believer in that. I'd love to sit down and just listen to you talk about the history for an hour. I have an interest in what happened, particularly with your group and how it's split up and all that stuff is interesting to me. I know a little bit about it, but I'd love to sit down and have that conversation with you. And additionally, now that we're getting our feet, we have a whole new administration, so we're getting our feet, grounded and really getting going. But we would love to, once we're well established and we're ready to go, we'd love to assist you guys. We have a very radical group. We love doing pickets and really getting out there and being visible. So I'd love to help you guys out. And that's the same thing goes for you, brother Hooker. If we're anything you need, we have a lot of members surrounding that Philadelphia area, and we'd love to help out in anything you need to help with. Just we're a phone call away, and we'll get people there and mobilize our forces and do what we can to help you out. And so I'd love if you guys are ever. I live outside of Nashville, Tennessee here. So if you're ever in this area, stop by. It's great places to eat, man. We got some of the best fried chicken in the country, in my opinion. So we got good barbecue too. I know everyone says it's all in Texas, but that's a lie. It's in Tennessee.
It was in Memphis.
We got the best barbecue. So I'll take on Texas any day of the week. So
all right.
So I have a question. I'm a new leader just like you as well. we just started our second term here this January. So just to go back a little bit, when Marty Walsh and Joe Biden and other high-ranking union officials begged and pleaded with Congress to force this contract, that really that did something to me, because I haven't been around in this position long, right? And so when I hear stuff like that, it kind of, I don't want to say it dampens my spirit, but man, it irritates me, because we tell our members fight, participate, and all these types of things. But then when you get something like that from your leadership, it kind of takes away from the message of fighting the employer, coming together. Because if I do all of that and my leader sells me out, then why am I fighting for?
Absolutely.
And that's something that has been going on for far too long in this labor movement. We get pumped up, ready to go, and then boom, not the company, but our own leadership drops the hammer on us. And you guys have a fight. We have a big fight coming up that's going on right now with the UPS contract. And I'm definitely going to be calling you to send some of them members out from the rail to come out and help us, because it's going to be a fight. And I appreciate that. But somehow, some way, we have to, I don't want to say, because it's too early for that. I'm not even going to say it, because I know I know we're going to get in some trouble, so I'm not going to say that. But what can all of us do right here on this call, people that's watching, what can we do to mobilize our membership, so when our leaders do make these kinds of comments and rallying cries to go against the members, what can we do?
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're opening up the door to a Trump again. And I'm not, as a fairly social conservative guy, I'll tell you that's not good for labor. And I represent members that stretch out across this country from all Nebraska and Idaho, all these different areas. In fact, a large majority of my members are probably socially conservative. I wouldn't say the large majority, I'd say probably 60%, 65% at least. So the majority are social conservatives. And when you're pushing and advocating for a vote for Joe Biden in these situations, as you guys know, the unions did, and he doesn't deliver, it opens that door for them to
absolutely say.
So what we did do, and this is just one thing we did, is we adamantly and fortunately fortunately we were able to get it, but we were adamant with the Senate that we wanted a vote, and they didn't want to take it there. We wanted a vote, and they thought we were going to lose. Well, they thought we were only going to get 45 votes or something. We were able to get 52. So the filibuster in the Senate is a problem, as you guys know. Mm-hmm. But we were able to get 52. If all the Democrats would have voted, we would have been at 57. So we were 3 short of getting the sick leave.
Right.
And so what we did is we did have a few Republicans that voted with us on the issue, but we mostly Democrats, and the Democrats, and the progressive wing is the one that pushed it and helped us get to the vote that we wanted. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to identify who voted with us and who didn't. And we post that for our members. So it's no longer an argument of who we should support or who we shouldn't.
Yeah.
These are the people that voted with you, and these are the people that didn't. So I think it's important, and I took some major heat and flack for this, but I think it's important to call out the people that don't help you out.
That's right.
And you have to tell your members truthfully and honestly. This is what it saddened me to have to say but we had to expose the letter that Biden had written. And unfortunately, I think that if it could have been written so much better, but even when he said that they weren't going to support us, they told us to get in line. They told unions, get in line, railroads, here's a nice big mansion for you, is what they did. And the letter was in, people keep saying it's not, but I can't say it enough. It was anti-union. It was anti-labor when Biden wrote it. And so my frustration, I was already mad that we weren't going to get to strike, but my frustration was just the way he delivered the message was poor. And, we all know that somebody wrote that. One of his staffers wrote it. But my God, fire the person. If you got somebody writing a nasty letter like that towards labor, fire him. That person should never be employed in your White House that has anti-union sentiment like that, because the letter was anti-union. So it is my belief that when we run into these situations, we got to hold them accountable. We got to expose them. We got to talk about it so that they understand that we're not just going to vote for them because they have a D behind their name. We're only going to vote for people that support labor.
Exactly.
We care less if you're D or R, as long as you support labor. Exactly. And I'm really that guy that transcends some of this, because I come from a socially conservative family and I have social conservative beliefs and all these things, right? And I'm a very conflicted person myself. I vote Democrat and some Republican because I have problems with some of the issues. And so I wish that Republicans would get their head out of their crack and start voting, for some labor issues that make they won't, and they hate labor. We know that. And so we're continuing this fight of trying to get some Republicans. In my mind, I'm still trying to find some Republicans that are willing to stand with the working class. And if Democrats won't, otherwise the Democrats need to start standing for they already have labor and they take it for granted. So we need to start holding them accountable so that they can fall back in the support of labor, because they're not.
Yeah, you're right.
Some major corporate wars in the Democratic Party that are running our country right now that we have to hold accountable, and we have to vote them out, and we have to call them out. We have to support the more labor-friendly Democrat in that situation, and we got to be. And it's controversial because some of these Democrats are there, and if we don't support them, we know they're going to win, and so we just vote for them anyways, and blah. It's like, no, man, vote for the guy that's pro-labor all the time.
Yeah, we got to gang up and get rid of them. Let me ask you a question. Can you share that letter?
Oh, it's a letter that everyone they wrote it, but I'll send it to you guys. No problem. I appreciate it.
And could you send me the breakdown of the vote in the Senate and probably
absolutely.
The House? I'd appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think people got to understand, and I said this to my members on January the 12th. There are 100 people in the Senate. 2 Black, some women, predominantly white male.
Yeah.
And you could not muster 60 to vote for one sick day, right? So, because you can amend the proposal, right? So you can say, well, I'm not sure about 7, but I'm willing to give them 2, right? You couldn't find, right? So, and I've said this to you that in my opinion, the Democrat and the Republican are in a dance together, and we are the victims of that dance.
Yep.
Sure. Absolutely. There are once again, and there are a couple Democrats that just really stood with us through the whole thing. AOC was with us on it. Bernie Sanders was with us on it. They're basically the progressive wing. And so they stood with us on the process the whole way. The thing that probably bothered me most about all of them, with the exception of Bernie, is that they were way too comfortable taking our strike away.
Right.
It bothered me. It's like they didn't understand you're taking a strike away from people, and you've got to understand that's like it. I mean, let's be honest. If the strike were to be taken away from UPS, it could end up there. We all know that. And if the strike were taken away from this, there would be hell to pay.
Yes, it would.
I mean, there would be hell to pay.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
In government, because government can intervene. What's unfortunate is too many people were way too comfortable taking our strike away, and that is a very dangerous place in society.
That's a problem.
That's a real
workers need to understand that. Workers need to understand what that really means. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. My own members were accusing me of being okay with it, and I'm like, I'm not okay with it. It's like I want to go on strike. We extended off the cooling off period because we already knew that there was legislation written to stop our strike, and so I extended the cooling off period to try to fight and stop the strike, stop them from stopping our strike.
Right.
And so my members were like, you extended the cooling off period and this and that. And it's like, I'm trying to get out on a strike. But the misinformation from the railroads is always a beast out there.
Right.
I mean,
And you also have a responsibility. A lot of times, you sit in these chairs. The people who are not in that chair, right, don't recognize that on your shoulders is the lives of 35, 40,000 workers and their families. You know what I'm saying? So you can't afford to be reckless unless somebody says to you on top of you, yo, I got you, right? Yeah, so absolutely. You should have been getting, because we were advocating for this, right? There should have been calls from the Longshoremen's Union, from different unions, from higher up in our union to say, yo, no 7 sick days, we gone, right?
Yeah.
And that would give you something, but you couldn't do that on your own.
Sure.
You couldn't take that hit on your own.
I agree. I will. And I don't know where everyone falls with the IBT, president right now. And I'm not speaking for or against him. That's not my position here, but I will say that he did push the sick leave issue and help us with that. He was vocal about it. There's a real unique relationship with IBT and the BMWED that we have kind of this very autonomous type of a merger agreement. It doesn't allow them to do much without, and so I was a new president, really didn't understand, all those nuances because I walked right into the mess. And once we settled a couple of those issues, he did speak out for us and lobby for us and did go to bat for our sick leave issue. Of course, I was confused because early on I was going, why isn't he saying more? Well, there were some limitations there and whatnot. So I don't know, him and Walsh's relationship 100%. I don't know how all that works. I know that there's a lot to learn for me, but I will say that he did stand up. He did lobby the Hill with us. And he did push for us to get the sick leave in a way that made a difference. I believe we were able to get some Republicans with his help and some different things. And so I'll say that aspect of it. And that's not me advocating for him. I'm not trying to.
No. This is just facts. The truth is the truth. Yeah, you have to tell the truth. Yeah.
So once we did that, he did get involved and he did push his way in DC for us on the sick leave issue.
So we have to look at those merger agreements to see how those agreements need, because you can't be a part of something like NATO. Yeah, it's like, if you hit one NATO country, you hit all NATO countries. So you can't be in a situation where you're in the Teamsters and you can get hit and the Teamsters can't hit back with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
So whatever that agreement has got to be fixed.
Yeah, we're sitting down with him. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. We're sitting down with him next week
Great.
On the 18th, and those conversations are going to be held. And so we're looking at some of that. It's, my predecessor, so I won't go any further.
Don't go no further than that.
So is there any movement on any type of leave for you guys? Any okay, good.
Yeah, there is some movement. In fact, there's been some offers put on the table from some of the railroads. They're not where they need to be. They're 2-day type deals, 1 day, that type of thing. The problem with us giving it, and a lot of people say just take it, but the problem with taking 1 or 2 days with the railroads is that you're going to have a hard time ever bargaining up from that. It's difficult.
You understand.
Establish a strong agreement to start with. That's how the railroads are. I've been around enough, and I've been in full-time officer in the federations long enough and dealt with the railroads and negotiated agreements. That was my primary job. My other job, to know that you better start with a strong agreement, because getting growing an agreement is very difficult in the rail industry. So we need a strong agreement,
particularly in the railroad industry.
Particularly, and I have some family in UPS, as a matter of fact, and you guys got your own set of problems. I 100% agree. You got a bad employer too that you guys have to fight and deal with. It's just new differences. There's different problems with those two different groups, and it doesn't mean one's less or one's more, or one employer is worse than the other. It's just simply that our fight's different. So I try to convey why our fight's different than than some of the other workers in the Teamsters.
Yeah, that like we said earlier, all of our fights are the same. We may have to
absolutely
attack them differently, but they're all the same. All the same.
Yeah. And
I'm hopeful that you guys go. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's important to share because a lot of times we just in our own little world.
You're right.
And we hear something in the news, but we're in our own little world, and that's why we wanted to have this conversation today because, just speaking to you the other day because the BLET voted yes, but then punished the guy that brought the deal to them. You know what I'm saying, and kicked him out. And at least your members said no. We're not going to take this deal. And we also want new leadership. And so, it was a pleasure. But you said that there was some conversation around the federal government. Can you talk about that in any way?
Around the federal government?
Contractors?
Absolutely. So when we went through the COVID crisis, our members were named essential workers, and I believe a lot of Teamsters members were. So it's not just the railroad industry. I understand that, but our members were named essential workers, and so the railroad started mandating the vaccine. And whether your sentiments are for that or against it, our members, by and large, as we explained earlier, we represent a lot of members with different feelings and beliefs. So the large majority were against a mandated vax. They believe that it should be, your choice, if you will. And so we represented those members and we argued the issue in some different ways. And ultimately the carrier's response in all legal matters was that they're federal contractor. So the railroads deem themselves a federal contractor because they have large government contracts. And so they deem themselves federal, even though they're private industry. They don't know that.
Right.
Their freights are, and they're a federal contractor.
They can find a crack in the rock when they need one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the funny thing was, and this is our team, and I give credit to our team because we got a great one. Our team said, "Well, wait a second here." During negotiations, when we took over, we said, "Wait a second here. If you're federal contractors, one thing federal contractors get is what? I think you guys can probably guess.
Right.
They get sick leave, right?
Yeah.
And they're all entitled to it. And so it's like, well, it's good for the goose, good for the gander, right? So we were like, all right, let's do this, and let's if you deemed yourself and in court prevailed saying that you're a federal contractor, then we all federal contractors should get 7 days of sick leave. Well, the maritime and railroad workers were exempted from that federal contract. It was an executive order under Obama. And so that was one of the issues, is that we were pushing the White House to open up that potential door of saying, hey, this federal contractor should be extended to rail workers and maritime workers as well. To include them, not exclude them. There's no reason why they should be excluded, because a lot of the federal contractors are union employees as well. So there's no reason in the world. It doesn't exclude union agreements. It shouldn't either. Mm-hmm. And so our goal is, that if we can't negotiate it, to potentially I'll say it very clearly. We believe that the White House should indeed issue an executive order in line with that. They were quick to follow Biden's mandate on vaccines.
Right.
A lot of our members lost their employment because of it. The fight was really real. It was serious. We lost, and eventually it fixed itself. And some of them got their jobs back, but a lot of them, or they went against what they morally believe is wrong. And I think we all know that some employees were just doing it to be obstinate, but some guys genuinely had conversations that had, where they had genuine beliefs, and they don't vax at all, and they just simply said, I don't vaccinate. We don't believe that it's right or okay for myself or my family, and they had to go against their beliefs. And you guys know what that's like. If you've got to do something that you morally believe in, and you are forced to do it as a condition of employment, it's demoralizing.
It is,
all the stuff goes along with it. So unfortunately, that's was one of the issues during the COVID, but ultimately played out in our favor in the sense, well, okay, if and a vaccine, why not give us the other benefits of the federal employee status that you guys claim? So that is one aspect of the fight.
Well, to the extent that Teamsters Local 808 can assist in that, in moving that, please talk to me. Talk to me next week and let me know what you need us to do, man, because so we could help push and press, because this needs to happen. I'm committed to seeing you guys get sick days in 2023.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So if you need me to throw a rock that you can't throw, I'll throw the rock. You know what I'm saying? If you need me to.
Well, there is one thing I would love you to do, Brother Silvera and Brother Hooker. We're doing videos right now of railroad workers that suffer because of not having sick leave, and their stories are heart-wrenching. Single parents and people that's wives had cancer and things like that, where they couldn't get sick leave and aren't able to use it. So we're putting together, I always believe this, that the best way to convey your message is tell your members' story, or have them, it's better for them to tell it. And if they can't, then that's the best way, number one. The second best way is for you to tell it for them if they can't tell it or feel comfortable telling it. So we have a bunch of our own members that are telling these stories in short video clips. And so when we'll share those with you, and if you could spread those around.
We will.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
We will definitely do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, man, my commitment is there. I come from the track department. I've sucked up enough dust and steel and, welded rail. What I'm saying? I got enough dust inside of me that it bothers me. And it bothers me to this day, and it ain't going to stop bothering me for a long time. You know what I'm saying?
So good stuff.
Yeah, and you have our commitment as well. Whatever you need from us, I know we don't come from the same job classification, but again, we're fighting the same enemy, and your enemy is my enemy. So whatever you need from us, man, we will definitely pitch in to help out.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
And they carry a lot of UPS trailers on those rail cars.
Yes, they do.
Those UPS trains that we got are high priority. So they prioritize trains. Amtrak's always first because it's passenger, and the federal contracts and whatnot is usually first. And one of the highest priority trains that you'll find that runs are the UPS trains when they run across these various different territories where they have runs. If you're running from, like, let's say LA to Phoenix or something, those are very high priority trains. And so it means that the other trains yield to them, right? So if same trains can't run on one track, two trains can't run. So the other trains get off on sidings. I'm just explaining this for those of you that don't railroad. The other trains will get off on sidings while that train comes through. So it has, just a complete free run through the territory because they're prioritized trains. And so the UPS trains are big for us. And that's why, I won't say this, I'll be careful, but that's why I think that UPS members and the railroad members can, as we strengthen our relationships, they'll be mutually beneficial for each other as well. So,
well, you have my commitment. I think we have to do that. I mean, we have to do that. I would love to have you come, like Brother Chris said, you can come to my local and talk about strengthening that relationship, because like you just said, those trucks go on the rail, right? And our members load those trucks that go on that rail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your members drive that train that has that truck that's on that track. So I think that would be awesome. I would love to do that.
So if you remember, Richard, probably the first piece that we did around these sick days, I said that the railroad guys should extend their contract until July 31st.
Absolutely.
So that when UPS went down, we just took out the whole shebang. Right?
Absolutely.
And,
I that crossed my mind, and it may have been something I heard from you indirectly or something, but it crossed my mind, but I knew my members would kill me if I even thought about going that far out. So
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my mind, strategically, I like to play chess, if you will. And so strategically, I was like, man.
But that would be so beautiful, wouldn't it?
It would be amazing.
God. Shut down the whole entire country.
From left to right. Because let me tell you something. You'd have to stop unloading ships. Even whether you the ILWU or the ILA wanted to or not, they couldn't unload any more ships. So they would effectively be on strike as well.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Man, let me tell you,
I got goosebumps, y'all.
I had dreams.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Tony, man, I just want to let you know, brother, man, that Richard and I have been carrying this. The December 12th movement has been carrying it. I'm going to have somebody send you some video, some pictures, so that your members can know that there's love across this country for them. The Coalition of Black Trade Unionists was standing up, being led by a gentleman that is a member of the Transport Workers Union Local 100 here in New York. December 12th, I told you, so somebody has a copy of a video. If you have a videotape machine, not a videotape, excuse me, a CD machine, I'm going to get a copy of The Education of Sonny Carson. It'll give you a sense of the December 12th movement. Pretty militant group of people, but while we were planning to put this march together, Omawale called me and said, "Yo, Chris, we got to do something." And I said, "Yo, I'm planning something." He says, "No, we got to do it now." And I'm like, "Bet, I'm on it." And that's how we had that rally and a march in and through Grand Central. And that march brought out, you should probably send them a letter, just say you recognize the Southwest Airline Pilots Association, SWAPA. And they had about 20 of them brothers that came in solidarity with your struggle, just so you know.
Awesome. Yeah, I will. Send me that and I'll write. I'm a big believer in that too. Some of the stuff they're doing with the airlines right now is amazing. The unions just we got some really bold people over there that are really. So yeah, and I'll tell you this: we are very, very grateful. We heard about these, but we were like, we didn't know who was doing it. We honestly tried to figure it out. We were like, who's involved in this? And we have, for lack of a better term, we have a couple internal fringe groups that try to do some stuff, but it usually doesn't work well because they're I won't get into it, but nevertheless, there's some problems.
Like the Railroad Workers Union?
Yeah, well, there's some good ones. There's some very good ones. I know the RWU does a lot of work and stuff like that, but there's some out there that are a little more fringe, and they don't like any union structure, if you will. But anyways, they have done that. So we thought, oh well, but then we're like, no way, this is way more organized than that, because they just haven't been able to organize very well. And I'm all for internal groups building up within our union and voicing their opinion and doing their thing. But we're like, man, we heard about the Grand Central. We heard about there was one in Boston as well. And so we were like sitting there going, I have no idea. People kept asking me. I was getting calls from other people.
Yeah, they did one in Baltimore as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If I knew, I would go out and shake their hand and thank them, but I didn't know who or when. And we were trying to call around and figure it out. I had one of my guys looking into it, but we just didn't know, I guess. Yeah. So, we do. I want to say this. I do thank you guys for doing that. And I thank you for committing to that struggle. It's hard to find people out there that are willing to take their own time outside of their own. A true unionist does this stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate it. And I thank you for that. And our leadership and our organization feels the same exact way. If we know there's a fight out there going on, we'd love to join and be part of it and help out in any way we can. So thank you for your leadership in doing that. We appreciate it, and it was helpful. I know that the Boston one was, I'll tell you offline sometime, but it was more helpful than you think it was. So
right.
I appreciate what you guys did.
No, I know them guys up there, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah, we'll talk about that, no doubt. Yeah.
Well, brother Tony, appreciate you. We're gonna get off this thing. We don't want to hold everybody up.
Right. Hey, absolutely, man. I just want to say this: that I know that the BMWE is in good hands. I mean, that conversation we had the other day, and I tell people this: there's a river, right? And the river is the center. It has a left bank and a right bank, but all the water is in the river. And anything that's outside of the river is an enemy to the river. And your perspective. I love your perspective. I love the way you think. And I know that the BMWE is going to be in good hands, man. And I just want to let you know, man, much love for you, brother. Whatever I need, whatever I could do for you, call me. I'm always here.
I appreciate it, Brother Stewart.
Yeah.
Same here. Same here.
All right, good people.
Richard, thank you for your time, brother. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you again for yesterday.
All right.
To our event, speaking at it. It's really good. Thank you for that. Congratulations to Dr. Robin Cooper, President of the Philly chapter, TNBC. So we finally getting that started again. Brother Tony, I definitely got to get you to come out to the local and talk about how that unified fight can benefit everybody. So
yeah,
we got to set some dates up whenever you are free, so we can get that moving.
Yeah, when you're on this side of the world, let us know, man. I want you to. We'll call a meet, man, just to have you speak to our members, because your words are inspiring, man.
Yeah,
they need to know who you are.
The same, the same goes for you guys. We are looking forward to working with you guys, and I'd love to have you guys come, to our meetings, our conventions. We do have a National Association meeting coming up, I think in March or April. I'd love to have one or both of you guys come speak.
Man, let me know.
I'll shoot you an invite. We'll see what goes on there.
All right,
beautiful.
Sounds good. Well, God bless. Thank you guys for joining.
Yep. Enjoy King Day, and I'll talk to you offline about that battle to get these holidays.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Man.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Have a good night. All right now.